and very sharp, right? So that we can keep your energy and on, right? So, it's a very interesting topic, right? The topic is that, whether it's a gold rush or not, right? Whether the AI startups are getting the right amount of fund. And if yes, what basically is needed to get the right amount of funds. So we have a very good panel. We have 2 investors, 2 startups. They have chosen sides, right? We have 1 investor and 1 startup, and same on the other side, right? So let me start with the first question, right? Again, so when I see there are around 2,900 GenAI startups in the US, right? India will have around 290 odd, right? And if you see the investment, right? The investment happening in US for GenAI and AI startups is around 100 billion. Last year, we clocked down 730 million, right? I think, let me start with probably Vikram, you, right? What do you see from investor perspective, right? The gold rush is real, and if it is real, how do we capitalize it, right?
So thanks, Ankit. Good afternoon, everyone. So my perspective is quite simple in this, that one thing, AI is here to stay, right? That's an irrefutable fact. But the point is, what are we working on? Is it something fundamental? Building the infrastructure, building the pillars, building the base layers of how AI functions? Or are we working on some of the wrappers and the outputs of these tools, which can be outcompeted very fast? That's where the question is. And if you see today, I think it's the initial stages where people have taken to AI and are investing. But if you ask me, will this sustain and will this be a gold rush? The answer is maybe not, because unless we focus on the fundamentals and build better tools, better infrastructure, the wrappers won't survive for long. Today, I would say it's the initial stages, as people still call it. It's still the day 1 of AI. And if we continue to focus on wrappers, the gold rush may end soon. But if we continue to, or start to focus and build infrastructure and fundamentals, I think this should be a sustained growth over a couple of years.
Great, thank you, Vikram. So I completely agree. I think AI has just started to give the outlook and the return on, right? Let's get to Ravi. Ravi, from your perspective, and you bring a very interesting global perspective. What is of your view, right? What is that you think?
Thanks, Ankit. Hi, folks. Maybe I'll take a very short approach, but the answer is yes to your question. I can expand on that. And since you mentioned global perspectives, I think there is one part. We're all here. We're building in India for our the problem statements that we see around us. There's also this very specific entrepreneur that is building. I think a lot of you. Any show of hands, how many folks are building for a global audience here? Yeah, it's substantial. Right? And those are the entrepreneurs. I think I see them very often. The line between building for a global audience and the Indian audience, I think, is blurring a little bit, I would think. Because the Indian consumer is also very, very demanding, right? There are nuances to it, but they are very demanding at this point. You can't build, let's say, a product that is also RAN product and be successful in India anymore, right? So I think that is a nuance that we are seeing emerge out of in the last maybe 5 odd years, between 4 to 5 years, we've seen that emerge. That said, coming back to the gold rush, I think we are in this. If you look at the innovation, Gartner innovation cycle, or if you look at Carletta Perez, innovation cycle, we are still in that installation phase. To Vikram's point, the conversion from installation phase to deployment phase will happen. Some of it is probably already happening, but there will be chaos in between. There always is, right? There is sometimes there would be a trough of disillusionment, which some might argue that it has already happened. Like I was studying machine learning 25 years ago, so in some senses it has been around for a while. But the most recent wave, I think, is moving very quickly, and we only seeing the upside right now. And to wrap that part, I think there is some chaos, again to Vikram's point, that will happen between the installation and the deployment phase. But for all measures, I think the way the AI industry is moving, it's moving extremely fast. What used to be, years has been shrunk to months and weeks. So maybe that chaos cycle, that crash cycle will also be very short. It might have already happened, we don't know.
Great, thank you, Ravi. Ravi, so that was probably the perspective of investors. Let's start the startup, right? Satvik, let me come to you. Sarthak, sorry, let me come to you. So from your perspective, do you agree on that? And the next point I want you to address is beyond funding, right? What do you need? Data sets, compute, people, talented people, use cases. What does that you?
No, I mean, is it a gold rush? At least in an Indian context, I don't think so. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it surely is happening in the US, right? If you look at, I think weekly, hundreds of companies are getting funded, right?
Yeah.
So, but to answer the question as a whole, right? What I feel is, he was mentioning about building fundamental AI models. I feel, even in the future, like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, there are only going to be a small set of fundamental AI models that will exist or last or grow, right? I would still feel 99% of the real products coming out of AI will actually be SaaS products or solutions that end customers would use, right? It's never going to be just a fundamental AI model, right? ChatGPT is good to chat, but does it solve every problem in every way you go? No, it doesn't, right? You still have to just use ChatGPT, right? So those integrations, building those applications at the last mile, right? That is where the real future is. That's what I believe in, and for that, I feel, today, existing SaaS or any company for that matter, food delivery, etc., right? Every sector, those with huge amount of data sets, which is proprietary, that's not open, right? They will surely have a value in the future because, these are again technology companies. They know how to build AI teams, right? AI will be like an enabler to their data sets, right? That's what it's going to be. That's where the future is what I feel. And data set wise, I think, that can be solved. And to be honest, today, a lot of data sets are also generative in nature, right? So that's how the future is going to be like, AI is going to build its own AI, right? It's already happening, but I'm just saying. And talking about talent, yes, I think, I wouldn't call it as the biggest problem today. It is surely a constraint for AI companies. The reason is, at least the bubble is only over the last 2 years, right? You can't expect the whole workforce to be, skilled up and, be AI experts, right? So it would take time, but I think there is surely a hurry. If you see there's a lot of, I would say 10 years back, it was about full stack developer, right? Everyone wanted to learn coding, right, and build applications. Today, that hunger to learn like a full stack AI is already there, right? So I think it's happening, but it's not there yet. That's what I feel.
Correct. I think I agree. I think there is one side of the spectrum where people are building foundation, technologies, foundation models. The other is the usage, right? Again, how do you use this in the right domain? That's very important. From our bodies to a manufacturing, probably plant or unit, so much data is, sort of created. How do you use Gen AI and AI to solve that? I think probably that's important. Talent perspective also, I agree, right? I think it's growing phenomenally high. So great point. Let me come to you, Siddharth. Siddharth, you bring again a global and Indian perspective, right? So what is that you on the gold rush and what is needed beyond money?
See, if you think about it even today, right, monetization is not at the model level. Monetization is at the application layer, right? Even, this week, there have been some of the big stories in M&A have been around, OpenAI trying to acquire a coding company, right? At some billions, right? If you look at that category as one of the breakthrough categories, again, all of sort of the leading names now, hey, they're companies building capabilities and then solutions for different audiences on top, right? So if you sort of think about that in that standpoint, you think what will be true in 10 years. I think, there's a NASSCOM report which said AI is going to be X tens of billions of dollars in some years. We're talking about $1 trillion digital economy in some year. And the reality is, all of that value is going to be unlocked by consumers or businesses who have products and solutions that are built for their needs and their use cases, right? And just like all other classes of technologies, these then sort of get mobilized and fit into that, right? At some point, if it's as persuasive as I think all of us in this room believe, then it is that part which is then the core differentiator, right? So the same truths of great product, latest technology, great GTM, and all of your sort of growth, right? So I think that's where we eventually win. Now, to the points around, funding and fundamentals, I think it'll be great if India has fundamental layer research and capabilities. There is a government mission, the India AI mission, which is trying to sort of mobilize that. Let's see what plays out, right? To be seen. There are many interesting companies, some in this room and outside, who are also trying to build capabilities there, right? And that's a good area for us to focus on. And, the reality is funding is woefully inadequate, not even compared to global AI funding, but even Indian VC funding today, right? So maybe some of the gentlemen here will do a little more after this session there. But even outside of that, what we have done really well, if you sort of look at our $250, $300 billion services businesses, you sort of look at our hundreds of billions of dollars digital economy, we build great products that serve Indian consumers, and we build great solutions and services that serve global consumers. And why should we not do the same with such pervasive technologies? And we're seeing unbelievable acceleration of intent, training, use cases, and trials in just 2 years, within organizations and people of all sides, right? So I think it'll be good for capital to sort of chase that towards the opportunity that is already painted out.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think probably we are emerging to a point, we have some difference, but again, I think all of that is aligned to the same thing, right? Some of that is, there's a gold rush, there's funding, but again, funding is for the companies who have good fundamentals, right? Good research, good use case, all of that, right? So I think, with that, I think, let me get back to you, Vikram. When you assess AI startup, right, and when you want to put a bet, what are the key factors, key metrics from your lens you measure before putting the bet?
See, I'll keep it very short. With the pace at which AI is developing, the one question that all of us have, and maybe the reason for the lack of funding also, is this business going to be relevant or survive tomorrow? Right? Other businesses has a reasonable, or we can reasonably predict the longevity or the sustenance of those businesses. AI, it's anyone's game today, because what ChatGPT was, if I just take a reference, 2 years back when it launched to what it is today, there is no comparison. That's how much it's developed, right? And so are any other AI businesses, because it's learning on its own, it's generating on its own. I don't know whether this business is going to survive 3 years down. Look, as an investor, one fundamental rule is I invest to make money, right? So the business has to survive. And that's where that technology, the rapid pace of technology, has to be understood well. And that's a key factor when we get to investing. Now, the other part of it is, the reason why I said fundamental is OpenAI took almost 10 years to get to where they are, right? Today, it's a point at which everybody is using it, everybody is talking, but the 10 years to believe that this is possible also needs that clarity and understanding and that backing, right? So if any business is able to give that clarity, that what they're building takes time and needs that capital and can give those returns, I think those are the ones that are getting fundamental. Those are which is getting funded. It's not about saying, oh, I'm trying it out today, tomorrow I don't know whether it may not work. Well, that's where the ambiguity lies. And that's also the reason why there is a little bit of hesitance to put in or go all out in this. Secondly, is also the fact that some of the investments, especially GPUs and the other models, requires big capital. So it really needs that depth of thinking and clarity of what you're building out. That's my 2 cents on why or what we look at when we invest in such businesses.
Yeah, I have a point on that, but again, I'll cover it after I hear from Ravi. Ravi, key factors, metrics, how do you measure? Or what do you measure?
Yeah, and to Vikram's point, it is very hard. Exactly. I think the speaker before this also, Ranjan, mentioned that some of the agentic applications, we don't know, it changed overnight. And to your point, Vikram, where will value accrue? We are not really sure. So that you just said that, in fact, it was interesting to hear from you, coming from a infra company, to say that value will accrue in vertical AI startups to some extent. By the way, we agree with that at Leo. So fundamentally, what do we look for and what do we invest in hasn't quite changed actually from, let's say, 5 years ago and today. And what that is are we solving a real problem? Who are we solving it for? And to Vikram's point, what is the overall impact of that's going to be? If this problem is solved, then what? Who will benefit and how much can that pie be? What is different today is, of course, the tool sets available for solving those problems are, in some senses, far superior. In some senses, they're far more difficult to utilize, but they're different, right? So the tool sets are slightly different. And with that comes the velocity that we were talking about before. So today, some years ago, for a SaaS company to go out and raise capital, let's say from seed, you try out your solution, and going to Series A, if you had $1 million in ARR, you could raise capital. That benchmark has moved significantly. The rule of 40, for instance, has moved significantly, at least the way we are looking at it. 40 is like a baseline, but you better be at 60 or 80 in today's time and age. Especially if you're using it, if you're squarely in the AI space and using that. There are industries that are not as directly impacted by these tool sets, and those will probably be different. But I think AI companies, they do have to go with the higher velocity. So velocity is one thing that we are clearly looking at to filter, and then the fundamental of what problem are we solving, it stays the same.
Perfect. I think a point on both of you, what you said, right? The base infra, I think, which is available to startups in US and probably China and Israel and few other countries, is humongous as compared to what we have in India. With probably some efforts through India Mission putting $1.2 billion, there's compute which is available. There's fundamental data sets they are providing, and then funding also. But again, I think that is minuscule as compared to what is happening globally, right? I think that's the first view. The other view is, I'll give a small story, right, about a startup and the journey, right? A startup, so we incubate around 360 plus AI startups. One of the startup we incubate is, again, generative in nature on image, right? 4 years back, before even the Gen AI or probably the OpenAI burst, they used to use GAN models to generate, various images, right? Images, video, and few others. This thing came in, they moved to diffusion model. At that point in time, they raised $1 million, right? And they are a B2C sort of startup. Now here, when they changed, they pivoted the whole, technology, right? Again, when they pivot, whatever they did earlier was nullified, right? Again, that has happened in the whole life cycle, and that's what we're discussing. Velocity technology velocity of usage is changing, right? So one is, at least in Indian ecosystem, we want to be empathetic to the startups, how they are. Now, 1 million that time is nothing as compared to 4 years burn rate, right? Now they're scouting for more funds and all of that. But again, similar startup raising fund today is raising 8 million to 12 million, right? So that's a scene, right? Again, the next question, again, probably I'll ask to Siddharth is, Siddharth, seeing the ecosystem in India, and you have US access also, is the ecosystem mature, right? What are things, what you're feeling we are missing here, right? In this ecosystem, right? Are we empathetic enough to the startup and the founder? I think founder journey is a lone journey, right? So it's definitely ups and downs. But again, what do you think about the ecosystem per se?
So, So if you look at this, I think everyone knows that, there's the US and then there is everything else, right? Like US in terms of capital, network, the talent density, etc., and all of that, right? So there are a certain set of things there. But if you think about that, even over the last, and we might be maybe in the second or the third iteration of India tech and that journey, right? Even then, we are still seeing so much progress, growth in the Indian technology industry still, right? Like, let's leave the last 2 years out of it, right? Today morning we were talking to the CEO of the Karnataka Digital Mission, and the ambition is that the GDP of this state, Karnataka, with 60-70% of that is actually going to come from digital and technology companies, right? And it's already a significant contributor today. So I think, in spite of that, because of, I think, founders sort of taking that bet, and it's as you said, it's a lone journey, it's a hard journey, that's one. And then the second is there has been growing capital along the way to sort of support them. And then over a period of time, support system, we've reached where we are, right? If you think about the next step and if you're thinking about AI as a part of it, I think it really depends on what kind of company you're sort of building, right? The reality is now in a lot of spaces, especially with sort of some of the equation rebalancing around the VC industry, it's not for the faint of hearted in terms of funding requirements, right? I think in almost every category, capital requirements have gone significantly higher. And so I think, money is going to follow very specific areas where they see their opportunity, one. I think the second thing is, one of the sort of like secrets of Silicon Valley is, there are no secrets. I think the access to information, networks, and, that ability to learn fast, I think it's amazing there, right? And you're starting to see that burgeon up here. Just yesterday I was seeing a video about a hacker house in HSR, and, so forth, so on, right? And those are sort of some of the cultural things under which also drive a lot of this, right? That sort of two, right? So I think if you sort of put like 1, 2, and then the third is like public infra into place, which I think is also what the government is trying to do. If we match these three things well, then hey, we've got a shot of continuing this journey with some velocity.
Thank you. Coming to you, Satak. What is that you see, the ecosystem, right? And I think what elements you would want more in the ecosystem? And then I will come to the investors, but in a quick 30 seconds sort of thoughts.
See, I think I mentioned earlier, right? In the ecosystem, one is, like he already mentioned, the funding in US versus the rest of the world is, it's like
100 billion to 730 million. That's what.
100%. It's like it's very different, right? And obviously, I'm not saying we should get funded more. If that's an opportunity, yes. But with, let's say, $500,000 in seed funding, we cannot build a foundational model. Right? I'm just saying, right? So on the other side, where India has always excelled in the past and even today is in building applications and solutions, right, to problems, whether it's working with the US or independently as well, right? By understanding Indian specific problems too. And India has 1 billion users, right? That's for sure, right? Even if you consider the top 100 million cream, that's still a pretty significant market to solve AI problems for, right? I think a lot of us should start focusing on that aspect too, right? And I think that's something that I'm looking for. And obviously the talent, the faster we grow, right? The faster we are able to upskill this talent pool to work on some of these problems and the core technology, that would be phenomenal. That's what
Great. Coming to you, ecosystem and what more we could do. NASSCOM and NESCOM and pillars like us, we are doing some sort of hand-holding, but again, what more we can do? What are the gaps?
See, I would probably say that India's got the best talent. India's got the knowledge of business and probably has that ecosystem and the ability to support, or to slightly put it differently, the value system as well. Perfect ingredients to make a great business. But where we need to kind of focus is that sustained focus to push through and develop something and not leave it midway. Because we take, I could be wrong, but this is my view, we take the path of least resistance many a times. To say, let's not take the risk, let's make this work.
Yeah.
Right? That ability to take that risk, take that leap forward, and build something. It's happened in certain industries, certain cases, but as an ecosystem, we need to give that platform for the founders to take that risk and say, go try, it's okay to fail. And to give that sustained support is what is going to create the next big thing out of the Indian ecosystem, which the US does very beautifully, by the way. People are not judged. People are not said that, oh, you're not good because you failed once, right? People can try 4, 5, 6 startups and still get it right the 7th time, right? And obviously, it's a cliched quote that's there. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up. And I think that's what the ecosystem needs to provide.
Great insight, I think. And then probably the last question, this is the same question to you. What do you see is difference in the US and India ecosystem, and what can we learn and what can we add?
Yeah, I think the panelists covered most of it, especially Siddharth. You mentioned about the community differences and the risk appetite. Let me double click a little bit on that. There is a sense of, I see a little bit of a dichotomy, quite frankly, when I speak to founders. And by the way, this is coming not as an investor. All of us at Leo are entrepreneurs first, and then we're building the firm also as entrepreneurs who are disguised as investors. So take it with a grain of salt. But what we've seen is one part that you mentioned, Satvik, about with 500K you can't build a foundation model, of course, right? The risk appetite both on the founder and the investor side has to change a little bit. I've seen, it's not just investors, I've seen entrepreneurs as well who say that, look, there's, this is an anecdote, but this morning I had a pitch deck saying that, by the way, we are raising, we're doing this particular startup for AI and we're raising $50 million. I said, what do we have? Can I see a demo? He said, no, this is a pre-seed startup. The demo will be built after we raise the funding. Now that is, I'm not saying every entrepreneur is like that, but that is in today's day and age, what the kind of tools that we have, like I'm going back and tinkering and I'm building a tool for our own firm to use on the, let's say, the deal sourcing side and filtering side. There is a lot that can be built today, if you're really passionate about the problem to solve, without raising any capital, right? It's just your human capital, the time and effort and passion that you put into it. So that I think really, maybe some of us have realized, some of us have not, in the sense that today, again, going back to what you were saying as to what has changed, it's table stakes to have a product in the hands of some folks, at least, getting some feedback before trying to raise capital, right? Raising capital is a side effect.
Yeah.
So I'll just probably add one thing. Capital is not going to get you clarity.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've had amazing insights, amazing discussion on the topic, right? And our time is really up. Can we take 2 questions from the audience? Quick questions.
To take just one quick question, and we'll come to Sir. Ma'am, we'll come to you for the next session for sure. Can we quickly get a mic there to the gentleman in the blue shirt? Sir, if you can please stand up. Yeah.
You can.
Sir, you can, yes, please go for it.
Yes, so I think one of the points that you mentioned was that more innovation and monetization will happen at the layer. That is the last point, right? And given how fundamental models are changing every day. So today, if I start something out on a problem statement, the way I solve it will change in a month or so. So from that use case for an entrepreneur, how do you suggest they move ahead? Like, given that fundamentally, the way you solve, the problem might remain the same, but the way you solve will completely change in a month. Do you wait for the new model to come in, which I don't think is the right approach, but starting out today in a month, if all of the effort that I put was wasted just because there was a model update, doesn't sound also right to me. What's the answer there?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, to be very honest, I mean, I would recommend you to architect your code in a certain way. I mean, today, I mean, we use LLMs, right, to a certain part of our, let's say, the whole architecture, right? And obviously, we realized it back in the days, right, that back in the days it was every month. Now it's like every day you have a new model that's better than what came yesterday, right? So there's no way you can, keep rewriting your code. There are open source frameworks which manage multiple LLMs in a single place, right? I mean, we can discuss on that offline, but you can use some of these architectural patterns so that whatever is the best today for your problem, I mean, you can utilize such models, right? I mean, you don't have to rewrite the whole code. I mean, I don't think in most cases that's how it's going to be, right? It's always going to be, since your problem is fixed, the solution, the way you solve it, it's just about abstracting how you build, how you solve the problem, right? I mean, that's what I would recommend. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think we are over time. I think, thank you, my co-panelists. It was lovely catching up and talking to you. And thank you, audience. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, an absolutely wonderful panel discussion. We request our panelists and our moderator to please do come forward towards the front of the stage. A lovely photo op moment. Please do come forward, join together. Lovely moment for a picture. Ladies and gentlemen, Siddharth Srinivasan, Ravi Srivastava, Satvik